Hello everyone, my name is Barry Miller, attorney and president of The Closing Agent, and we're here today to talk about solar panels. Now, one of the things we do here is we listen to our agents. When we hear there's a recurring subject coming up that's causing problems in the contract and closing process, we will draft a special addendum to address it. So what we've heard is there's a lot of problems with solar panels. How do we know? How do we keep out of trouble? All right, so up on the side of the screen, you have our draft of our solar panel addendum. And this is available on our Realtor Resource Center on our website, theclosingagent.com. And I invite you to look at this one and other ones to help with your clients. Now, if you're taking a listing, I would take the solar addendum with you and go through all of this with your seller and then post it on MLS and say this is a required addendum. If you're on a buyer side and you don't have enough information, you could either send this to the listing agent and ask them to provide it, or fill it out for what you can and then submit it. So let's kind of go through of what's going on here. So first, we just define in A the solar system. You know, what the solar panel system in and what it is. The system's been installed on the property, and what it includes and limited to. It's the solar panels, the batteries, the controllers, everything that's involved. Then the second B is the financial status. So you got to find out what's going on. So first in 1 or 2, you want to check the first one if it's owned by the seller free and clear, right? And it's going to be included on the bill of sale. That's the easiest way to do it. Make sure at the end you get a bill of sale at closing. We at the Closing Agent always issue a bill of sale. If you're not closing here, insist that you get a bill of sale. It is required not once but twice in the contract that says that. So number 2, if it's subject to a lease, so we get the information, who's the lessor, the account number, their phone number, what the amount is. If it's financed, let's get the balance that's due. If it's leased, when it expires. Then we put in here the seller authorizes the lien holder or the lessor to disclose to the buyer any documents, because a lot of the lien holders won't talk to the buyer because of confidentiality and privacy. This gives them the authorization to do so. So then we go on to the next section that says any fees or costs for assigning assumption shall be paid by the buyer. That makes it very clear. Number C, if the solar system is subject to an existing lease or financing, they're going to agree either 1, the seller's going to pay it off, great, then we're good. Or B, the buyer is going to assume the lease or the financing. Now they're going to assume it if they can. All right, let's go to the next page. If there's an agreement with a third party for sale of the excess energy, what's that? You've heard some people say is they collect all this power and they sell it back to the utility company. They sell it back to Duke or FPL. Sometimes it's sold to a third party. The buyer needs to know this because they may be subject to that agreement. So let's find out that. Name of the company, the contract, account number. So then we're going to go on here and say that the next paragraph is the buyer is assuming the lease or the financing. They're going to assume all the obligations as of the date of closing, and if it's in the middle of the month, we'll do a proration. And then it says within 3 days of the effective date, the seller is going to give to the buyer a copy of the lease or the financing agreement or the excess energy agreement. They're going to give any other type of documents on the solar system that's in their possession, and they're going to call this the solar system documents. And in the due diligence period, the inspection period, the buyer can then look these over, make their due diligence, and decide whether this is acceptable to them. And they want to consider the age, the end of the lease, the insurance requirements, maintenance, costs, taxes, all these things the buyer needs to know about. And then it says buyer within 7 days of the effective date will apply for the lease or loan approval in the manner that the leaseholder requires. It might be an application online, whatever it is, and the buyer and seller will fully cooperate to get this done. And then it has a contingency that says buyer's obligation to complete the sale is contingent on the buyer obtaining from the lien holder or the lessor the approval. And it has to be at least 3 days prior to closing. And then there's another contingency below that says the contract can be canceled by the buyer and get their deposit back if after a diligent and good faith effort, they're unable to assume it or the seller delivers a sign of inability to obtain it because maybe the lender won't allow it. So this gives them an out. Now, of course, these are just guidelines. Everything can be negotiated whether this would be or not. It could be negotiated that instead of them getting out of it, then they just have to pay it off. So it's fluid. These are just suggestions to keep you in the loop of what needs to be done and consider it. And then it also has the out in there if the buyer is unable to obtain the approval but fails to deliver the notice, then it's waived. So that way the seller doesn't have to keep going. Did you do it? Did you do it? It puts the onus, just like on a financing contingency, if the buyer doesn't let you know, we're going to assume everything's good. It also has at the end an acknowledgement that says that you guys as brokers and agents are not qualified to advise on the system, the cost, the insurability, the operation, because, you know, they ask you guys everything. So it tells them to advise, to check with independent counsel or another licensed professional in these due diligence. So make sure you do this. Make sure you address it. That way you be proactive, have no problems down the road. If you have any questions or need assistance with this, give us a call. We got 5 real estate attorneys here. Take a look again at our website, theclosingagent.com, for this addendum and other helpful addendums. Thanks for your time.